From grow your own to everything from scratch to organic only, there's no shortage of influential food movements. And authors have made millions selling books that promote new attitudes towards food and cooking. But a growing number of food lovers are resisting these trends, saying that they can vilify people, in particular mothers, whose meals fall short of these new food ideals. Aruna D'Souza is a cook, a mother, and a blogger at Kitchen Flannery. She joins me now. Good morning.
Good morning.
What kind of pressure do you think today's food culture is putting on moms?
Well, the ideals that are promoted by a lot of food writers right now, that we should be buying locally, that we should be paying attention to the environmental impact of the foods that we eat, that we should be, paying attention to meals in a way that we haven't for a long time, they're not terrible ideals. In fact, they're ideals that I embrace as well. But the reality is that often they take time and they take money, and women are still the primary people responsible for buying food and preparing food in Canadian households. And so, all of this time and effort is really falling on the shoulders of women in a way that's often unrecognized. That these authors, including someone like Michael Pollan, who's the most visible of them, and of course the author of Omnivore's Dilemma, which is a great book, imagines that if we just took more pleasure in what we were doing, that all of these sort of other considerations will kind of fall by the wayside. And of course, there are so many hours in a day and there are so many dollars in a wallet. And so, just our loving food more isn't necessarily a way of getting around those limitations.
Mm-hmm. Why is it that if, for example, you're not, buying everything organic or local, that it becomes a reflection of, whether you're a good mother or not?
Well, I think that's, I think that often happens in a lot of ways. I think that, there's a lot of peer pressure, frankly, a lot of worry about the kind of whether we are treating our families correctly. We've got a lot of scares out there about the, harms of not following these sort of precepts and what terrible things they can do to our bodies and our children's bodies. And I think there's also a sense that, women have created the problem, and so now we're sort of responsible for fixing it.
How did we create the problem?
Well, this is the major issue that I have with a lot of this writing. Is there's a kind of story that's being told that as women went back into the workforce in greater numbers in the 60s and 70s, and as feminism and women's liberation kind of grew, that somehow we rejected the idea of the drudgery of cooking, the drudgery of housework, and that we started embracing Hungry Man frozen TV dinners as, the alternative, that while we were out burning our bras and generally,
So we burned our aprons at the same time. Is that it?
Exactly. We were burning our aprons when we were burning our bras. And what's funny is that those stories were actually not coming out of what feminists were saying. They were very much coming out of big food advertising, right? Where processed food was being promoted by companies as, the time saver that would let us go out and go into the workforce. In fact, many feminists were at the forefront of the original natural foods movement, Diet for a Small Planet, local and organic eating. Mm-hmm. So they certainly weren't looking to big food, let's call it, the food industry to solve the problems. Quite the opposite. It was the big food industry that was hoping that they could sell this as a convenience for women.
Yeah. Do you think, though, that I don't know, that women should stop caring so much about what other people think. I recall reading this article where a woman was saying that she would actually buy cupcakes from the store and then muff them up and then pass them off as homemade.
Well, you know, there are times when the fact of the matter is that a store-bought cake mix is all I'm going to be able to whip up for my child's birthday party.
Why can't we just face that?
Why can't we just face that? Exactly. I mean, I think that there is a way in which we do put this pressure on ourselves, but we're also operating in a culture that in a large way is telling us, you know, we should slow down in everything, that we should, you know, make our own pickles, and we should grow our own food in our garden. We should, I don't know, knit our own clothes. There's a lot of, we should school our own children. You know, homeschooling has become a much wider phenomenon than it has. I think that there's a lot of idea that we can go back to a time when all of these things were not commodified in the way that they are now, so that we just opt out of the consumer system in a certain respect, and that, you know, we should be pursuing those non-commercial kind of avenues for the way we live our lives. The problem is that we all still have jobs and that aren't, you know, primarily involved, you know, many of us aren't primarily involved in maintaining our own households. And so there's only so many hours in a day.
Yeah.
And I think that has to become a reality, and that we do have to stop worrying so much about whether our cakes come from a cake mix or not.
Well, Aruna, thank you very much for joining us this morning for this discussion.
Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Aruna D'Souza is a cook, a mom. Her blog is kitchenflannery.blogspot.ca.